Welcome, friends. So, I'm changing the direction up a little bit because I've been doing some new research and this topic deserves a lot more attention. We've discussed in previous videos in the course how these types of people prey on the intelligent, the most empathetic people in situational vulnerable moments. And the biggest belief that makes us dangerously open to this style of abuse is the idea that you'd never fall for it because you're smart and grounded enough to know the signs. There is an assumption that cult members and victims of coercive control are traumatized, weak-minded, gullible, or disabled in some kind of way, but the research doesn't back that up. People who get trapped in high control dynamics are oftentimes mentally stable before it happened. Recruiters aren't preying on weakness, they're prospecting for strength. And then they weaponize it. Like I've said in previous videos, they prey on situational vulnerable moments in our lives. They swoop in when we're in a state of need for belonging or security, which has nothing to do with how capable we are, because every single one of us has moments of struggle. So let's take a look at how they target intelligence. You would think that an intelligent person would have a stronger defense system, right? But it's actually the opposite. Highly intelligent people are better at rationalization. When a group's behavior contradicts itself or they ask something illogical of you, your brain doesn't just reject it. You want to understand it. You want to see where it comes from and how. What is the reasoning behind the contradiction and if it makes sense to you. Oftentimes, you want to understand human behavior and want to see if there's a logical reason behind the contradiction. Maybe you might even want to be in a loving space with all beings. And so you want to understand the emotional needs behind the contradiction. And if it makes sense, it's much easier to rationalize. So the same cognitive power you'd use to solve a real problem gets redirected into building an airtight case for why the contradiction or the abuse is understandable. Once you can logically understand their behavior and why they want you to do what they're asking from you, every choice you make starts to feel rational, even the destructive ones, because you've been able to rationalize it all. Regardless of how corrupted it might be, it feels like you're making the correct decision because an entire reality was rebuilt around you by someone who understood exactly how your mind works. And this concept comes from Dr. Janja Lalik's research that we will go into later in the course. Intelligence isn't the only trait they're after. Idealism makes you a target because it's easy for them to capitalize on that. So they sound like they're a good person. If you genuinely want to help people heal the world or grow spiritually, that desire becomes something they can use for their own benefit. They can easily get you to do what they want you to do for the bigger picture. Suffering gets reframed as sacrifice. Exhaustion gets reframed as devotion. You're not being exploited. You're being called into a higher purpose. Conscientiousness also makes you a target because you follow through. You don't quit halfway. You take obligations seriously. A manipulator does not have to force a conscientious person to commit to doing whatever it takes. They just have to frame it as a commitment of duty, and you'll do it yourself. And empathy gets turned directly against you. If you are wired to care about someone else's pain, all they have to do is appear wounded, victimized, or misunderstood, and your own boundaries start dissolving. You stop protecting yourself because you're too busy protecting them. Intelligence, idealism, conscientiousness, empathy, none of these are flaws. These are some of the best traits a human being can have. And that's exactly why they get targeted. So when I was told I had a purpose to liberate humanity, it didn't feel like manipulation. It felt like recognition, like someone had finally seen what I had already sensed about myself. And that's the trap. They didn't have to convince me. It was something I felt called to do already. So if you've ever been in a situation where you were in this type of relationship, consider the possibility that you didn't fall for it despite being smart, devoted, and caring. You were targeted because of it. Someone studied exactly what made you valuable and built a trap shaped precisely like your own best qualities, so you would just happily walk in. And in our next video, we're going to look at the moment right before recruitment even happens. What makes someone a target in the first place? So I'll see you there.